Yo, what's good, YouTube? I appreciate y'all tuning back in. As you can see, I'm in my greenhouse right now. Most of my seedlings, we had like a little bit of a cold spell last week, so I haven't transplanted any of this stuff into the garden beds outside. I really just been taking them outside on warm days, letting them harden off. As you can see, they're for the most part doing pretty fine. But what I wanted to do in this video is just give a quick garden tour and an update of how everything is progressing, and then just go over a couple of mistakes to avoid that I unfortunately made this year. But I don't think it's too much of a detriment. But what I want to do is go ahead and just get right into it, going into like what I currently have in the greenhouse right now, and then I'll walk out to the garden beds and show what I have out there, because they're starting to really pop off. Pretty much all three of them. But like I say, yeah, just get a garden tour, and then I'm gonna give a couple mistakes to avoid when you're starting your garden. So getting right into it, the stuff in the greenhouse, all the stuff in the greenhouse are pretty much like the nightshade stuff. So like eggplants, tomatoes, peppers, stuff like that. I have a whole lot of different varieties of all those plants. Except for the eggplants, I think I only have one variety of eggplant, and I'm gonna get into that in just a second, because this is one eggplant right there. I mean, it doesn't even look like it's alive, even if you look at it, if you really think about it, but it is. But just going right into them all. BP, that's for banana peppers. One of the mistakes that I really do want to go ahead and get into is the type of soil that you start the seeds in. I think the biggest mistake I made was not having a soil that was fine enough for the roots to really like be able to build and flourish. As you can see right here, like this plant has, it's looking pretty healthy. It's just about ready to go ahead and be planted into the garden. And then you look at this banana pepper right here. Looks healthy. Growth is a little stunted, and it's way smaller compared to this one. I think the main reason, as you can see, is a whole lot of large particles in the soil that I mixed. So what I wanted to do this year is start my own soils from scratch instead of buying like the big box store soils, just because it can get way more expensive like that. But I think the biggest mistake I made was not giving good ratios whenever I was making the soil. So whenever I started the seeds, I did like a 2-to-1 ratio of peat moss and perlite. I think in the seed starting trays, I think there was a little bit too compacted, so the roots didn't really have enough time to really develop like they probably should have. Whereas here, you can see how it just looks a little bit more finer. I fed all the plants, all the like varieties at right around the same time. So these were probably fed around the same week. And then you can see how this one is really taking off compared to this one. And I just think it's because of the amount of soil, or the fineness of the soil, or the structure of the soil, and how good it is for root development. So that's a mistake to avoid, just making sure that you're using the right type of soil, or using the right like grain or grade of soil where it's fine enough for the roots to be able to develop, while still being able to retain water, while still being able to drain water as well. So that's the biggest thing that you want to take into account. My bad, so I had to stop the video. There's some construction going on the highway, so it got kind of loud for a second. So I just paused it for a quick second, but getting right back into it. Everything else is pretty much, for the most part, I think that's the biggest mistake I made, just because everything else is really a lot smaller than I really would want them to be. And I think the biggest example of it would be this plant right here, but mainly this plant right here. So this is a bell pepper plant, and I think this is the plant that I think confirms my theory about like the grain and how thick and how fine the soil is for seedlings, because I started this one in a peat pot where it's pretty much just loose peat moss, and then once the roots get out of the peat moss, then it gets to the soil. And this is probably the pepper plant that's flourishing the most compared to the rest of them. All of them, like I said, look healthy. Fed them recently, so they're starting to really take off. But I think this is the best example of making sure that the soil, or the mix that you're starting the seeds in, is one, like fine enough for the roots to be able to truly develop, and then also I can't really remember what I was about to say, but making sure the roots are like fine, or the soil is fine enough for the roots to be able to develop. And whenever you mix the soil, make sure the ratio is acceptable, and it's not like something that's going to have a whole lot of large particles in it. So I think that's the biggest example. But I'm actually going to spin around and show some of the stuff that's down here. So a lot of these small peppers, they're Carolina Reaper peppers. They have multiple like true leaves on them, but they're just a smaller plant in general when you compare them to like a jalapeno pepper or a bell pepper like this one right here. So this is just an assortment of a lot more peppers. Here's some okra that I recently started that I'm gonna probably just go ahead and plant down in the garden within the next couple days or so. Here's some more pepper plants that I recently started, all of them pretty much looking healthy. This is the only one that didn't sprout. And it looks like it actually did sprout, but the top was eaten off, and I can't really, it's hard to see it if you zoom in. So I think the seed sprouted fine, but I think maybe a caterpillar or something just got a hold of it while it was real early before it was able to like truly develop. And then back here, some of the tomatoes I've been growing. This is another example of finer soil, a little bit more growth compared to, you know, maybe this right here, like a little bit of like less fine soil and not as much growth. Like I said, they're pretty much all healthy in my opinion. They're not as far along as I really wanted them to be, but I think they're all healthy. What I anticipate on happening is, since they were started in soil that's probably closer related to like garden soil, once I plant them and transplant them into the garden bed, I anticipate like once they get settled and like the stress of getting transplanted is gone, I think they'll just take off within like the next 2 to 3 weeks. So I'll give an update in probably about a month or so, just to show exactly how much all this stuff updated. But that pretty much wraps up everything in the greenhouse. It's like I said, it's just all tomatoes, pepper plants down here, a couple okras, some more pepper plants right there, some more pepper plants right here, and some cucumbers and stuff, some pepper plants right here as well, and pepper plants, and then a lot of herbs down there. And then one more thing actually before I go out to the garden beds with the cucumbers, I started some cucumbers a couple more weeks ago as well too, and they died. I think the main thing with cucumbers is too, like their roots grow so big and so fast because they're viney plants that it probably just isn't the best to start them inside. It's probably best to just go ahead and plant them directly in the garden. Or if you're going to start them in a pot, just be ready to transplant them pretty quickly, just because they'll outgrow that pot pretty fast. And then actually one more thing before I leave the greenhouse, I think another mistake too when I started my seeds this year is the temperature. So like I started all my seeds in the garage and I had grow lights in there, but my garage is not finished. So I think the cold kind of hindered the growth as well too. Like these jalapeno plants right here are just not, they're just not growing like I wanted them to at all. So I think that was another mistake I made as well, just starting the plants in too cold of an environment, especially when they're like summer plants. But once I've been hardening them off for the last couple weeks or so, so I think they're fine with the weather now. And like I said, once they get out in the garden bed, I should see a whole lot of growth from them. So I'm gonna go ahead and head to this first garden bed right here, and then I'll head to the two in the back right after that. So this is one garden bed right here, starting to really pop off like I wanted, and I'm really starting to get excited about it. Right here is the arugula. Planted that about 3-4 weeks ago. I'm gonna probably start harvesting some of these leaves within the next couple days. Got a kale plant that I transplanted right here, looking real healthy. It's a little smaller than I would like, but it's looking healthy. I think I don't know what like variety of kale this is, but it's a little bit thicker and hardier than like this one right here. But this is kale too, and then this is some like scarlet kale, so it's gonna be like red in color. Some squash back there, some zucchini back there. I just transplanted those last week. I didn't record a video on how I transplanted it, but I am going to make a video on how I transplant like the pepper plants and the tomato plants in the greenhouse. This is some bok choy that just sprouted right there. You can see all 4 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4. Planted this in my previous video. I'll leave a link of it down in the description if you haven't seen it already, but they sprouted within like 3 or 4 days. Some more arugula right there. Collards are really starting to look like real big and healthy. Broccoli back there. I'm gonna have to do a video on pest control so you can see some of the holes in the leaves right there. It's probably caterpillars tearing them up, but I'll do a video on pest control, and I'll do my best to try to control the pests in the garden. But this is just one garden bed right here. These are all my lemon trees or citrus trees rather. Most of them are lemons, but a couple of them I got from orange seeds. But these are some of my lemon trees. They've really kind of been popping off lately as well too. This one looks just about like a bush right here. It's probably about a foot and a half tall. This one right here, believe it or not, all the leaves were pretty much going off of this one just about a month ago whenever this cold came through, but fed them and then they came back pretty strong. Sorry, I had to pause it again. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning, so I think there's a lot of traffic and stuff and construction trying to go on the highway, so the noise is a little bit loud, so I apologize about that. But here's some more lemon trees right here. Like I was saying, in my previous lemon tree, a little cold spell came about a month or 2 ago, maybe 2 months ago, and the temperature got to about 26 degrees, and I left them all outside, so all the leaves started to wilt. I thought all of them were going to die. There's a guy I follow on Instagram that said don't trim them too early. He said the best thing to do with citrus trees, if that happens, is go ahead and feed them. Wait till some new growth comes, and then you can start trimming off the dead ends. And that's exactly what I did, and I pretty much was able to save all my plants but one. but they're looking like real good now compared to like almost freezing to death just about a month or two ago. And I'm gonna head over to this other garden bed right here. So I'll start with this one first. Not really much has changed. The carrots are really starting to grow a lot. What you want to wait for carrots is like wait until like you see the orange or whatever color they are. You want to wait till you see like the carrot root or the stem of it start to kind of poke out of the soil about an inch, and then that's when they're ready to harvest. So these will probably be ready to go within the next 2-3 weeks. Beets, pretty much the same thing you want to look for whenever you harvest those. This is the succession planting that I did for the beets and carrots, so you can see that they're just a couple weeks behind those, about 3 to 4 weeks behind those, and then planted some more carrots back there too. So hopefully in my next couple weeks I'll be able to harvest these and show how pretty much how easy it is to grow carrots and beets, which are really nutritious. These are some Brussels sprouts I planted not too long ago. This is some more kale. I think this is Chinese kale right here, just by the way it looks. And then right here is some parsley that I recently planted. All right, and then right here is my last garden bed. This is some lettuce, 4 different heads of lettuce. I'm gonna probably pick some of this tomorrow morning, just because it's starting to get overcrowded a little bit. Some Swiss chard that I started a couple weeks ago, maybe about a week ago. Some more collards, and then some more spinach back there. That's Swiss chard, that's right there behind the lettuce, and then a whole lot of spinach behind the Swiss chard. Like I said, I'm gonna probably harvest a lot of these leaves tomorrow or within the next 2 days, just so it doesn't get overcrowded. They'll regrow, like more leaves will regrow, so I'll be able to harvest this stuff for a bit amount of time, like over the next couple months. Then going right here are the snap peas that I recorded making a trellis of like last week. They're really starting to kind of take off. As you can see the tendrils, if you zoom in you can see the tendrils, how they're starting to climb and grab onto the fence and pull themselves up vertically. They should start to flower within the next week, and then once they start flowering, then that's whenever I'll start being able to harvest the snap peas. Snap peas don't like a whole lot of really warm weather, so these plants will probably be done getting right into like June and July. By July, like it'll be an open plot, and I'll probably plant some more like tomato plants there or something, or some more pepper plants from the new seasons that I started not too long ago. And then right here is some cilantro. I'll probably plant another thing of cilantro right there next week. I think it's best to plant them like every 3 weeks or so you can continue to harvest them throughout the season. But they're looking healthy so far. I think I may just end up changing my layout and filling this whole row up with cilantro, just because the herbs didn't really grow like I wanted it to. Or I might just buy some herbs that I can just transplant into the garden, but I really prefer to do it by seed. But that pretty much wraps up all the stuff that's in the garden bed. I planted some strawberry seeds in those 3 plots right there. Strawberry seeds take a little bit of a while to sprout, and I don't even know if they will sprout, but I wanted to see if it'll work. So I'll give an update on that if they are able to sprout. But that pretty much wraps up all the stuff that's in the garden bed. Another mistake that I wanted to go over is the blueberries. So I transplanted these blueberries not too long ago. I did make a video on that. I'm starting to see a little bit of new growth, but I think the main thing that I did when I transplanted them was I think I overwatered them, to be honest with you, because some of the leaves actually fell out. So I think I overwatered them. If you have any experience growing blueberry plants and you know of any kind of tips that you can give, definitely leave it in the comment section. But I think that's another mistake to avoid. And then this is actually the last plant that I forgot to show. This is like the strawberry plant that I have, and they're pineapple strawberries, so the strawberries actually come out looking yellow instead of being red, and I think they have a little bit more of a sour taste. So I'm interested to seeing what these taste like. But this plant is doing really well. I transplanted it into some new, well, I repotted it really. I kind of recycled the soil that I was in, added some feed to it, added some like soil acidifier, like some sulfur to it, just so I can lower the pH of it. And I did that a couple weeks ago, and it's really taken off, so I'm really proud about how this plant is coming along. I started this from seed last year, and I think it had a couple strawberries last year, but this is the year I think I'll be able to really harvest a whole lot of strawberries. As you can see, like I got a whole lot just right here. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up all the plants that I have in the garden bed and kind of out in the backyard right now. I actually forgot a couple plants too, so I didn't plant this right here. This was here when I bought the house, but it's called a Rose of Sharon bush. It's like the best thing that I could have ever hoped for, honestly, because it flowers a lot, so it attracts a lot of pollinators like bees, yellow jackets, and stuff like that. But I don't really remember when they flower. I think they flower closer to like like May or June, but you can see how the foliage is just really starting to kind of come in. But it's like one of the greatest things that's that kind of happened by accident, honestly. Like just planting the stuff around that tree or around this bush has been able to really kind of increase my harvest over the last couple years. And then the last thing I actually want to do is I have a couple things on my back porch that I wanted to show. Here is another little apple tree I started from seed in my basketball planter. Another apple tree too. This is a lemon tree that I kind of cut in half after that frost. It had new growth on it, so I know it's alive. But I think I'm gonna turn this one into a bonsai tree too. But it's looking pretty healthy so far. Some sage right there, some spinach right there, some broccoli, and then you do some pest control on that because the caterpillars are killing my leaves. Another bonsai tree that I picked up recently. Haven't done any training on it, but this will be my first one. This is nasturtium. They can't take the cold weather, so I planted those in pots just so I can see how they grow. And I've been taking them inside whenever it gets real cold, but I want to just kind of see the growth pattern of them. That way, whenever I plant some in the garden, I can kind of know what to expect. Put some lavender seeds here. Nothing has sprouted yet, but it's only been about 3 weeks. And then right here is some more Swiss chard and beets. And then these are my apple trees. Can't really get a good angle on them, but I'm about 5'11", 6 feet tall. You can see this tree is probably about 8 feet in the air right now. And I'm sorry I had to pause because of that noise again. But like I was saying, it's probably about 8 feet tall, and they're still in pots. So I mean, I think once I plant them in the ground, they'll probably really take off. But I just been holding off because I already got one that's in the ground. And I think this one looks pretty cool, where it has like three shoots coming off. This one's not as tall, but the foliage has just been coming in pretty good over the last couple of weeks too. And then my last one is over here. So this is the other apple tree that I planted. This looks the healthiest in my opinion so far, but I put this one in the ground last August. I'm really hoping, I doubt it'll flower this year, and I doubt I'll get any type of fruits, but I'm hoping within the next year, like so I'm hoping in 2022, I'll be able to at least, even if it's not a fully grown or fully developed apple, I'm hoping to at least start to get some flowers, because that'll indicate that I'll start to get fruits. But that's kind of wishful thinking. But that pretty much wraps up the tour of everything that I got going on right now. Like I said, I just wanted to go over a couple quick mistakes, and hopefully they helped out as well. Also, I haven't been making videos about my yard, but it's coming in really thick and really green lately. I've made some mistakes, so I think I'm gonna try to make a video on that too. But that pretty much wraps up today's video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn your notifications on so you don't miss out on any new videos. But until next time, guys, peace.